Once, there was a tune, and everyone knew how it went. But as time went by, people began to forget, until at last, no one could remember. And there was sadness, and hatred, and wars, and death. And one day, somebody said, "How does the tune go?" "Well, there isn't really a tune, there never was. It's only a myth." These were the philosophers. "You mean there's no tune at all?" "Well, it doesn't really matter what tune you play, as long as you play something, and you don't hurt anybody." These were the religious leaders. And so the world continued to play the only way they knew how. And there were wars, and death, and hatred, and sadness, and confusion.
His analogy had to do with first precepts, or what Christianity calls the way. There is a path for men to walk in, and Jesus may have changed it somewhat, but for the most part that path has always been there, relatively unchanged since the world began. The prophet Jeremiah says, "This is what the Lord says, stand at the crossroads and look, ask for the ancient paths, ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls." We've lost a major walkway from among those ancient paths today. It's a street called Beautiful. And up until the 19th century, nearly every major religion took it for granted that one of the divine attributes of God was beauty itself. Where you found even the least bit of beauty, you found some small part of God in it. And where you found anything we think of as good, that goodness also stemmed from the beautiful. We can trace this all the way back to Plato's Symposium and possibly much earlier. Christian writers such as St. Augustine, Pseudo-Dionysius, and Thomas Aquinas all identify beauty as something transcendent from God. Pseudo-Dionysius says the following: "This good is described by the sacred writers as beautiful and as beauty, as love or beloved, and by all other divine titles which befit its beautifying and gracious fairness. But the super-essential beautiful is called beauty because of the quality which it imparts to all things severally according to their nature, and because it is the cause of the harmony and splendor in all things. It is called beautiful because it is, eternally, unvaryingly, unchangeably beautiful, and not beautiful in one part and foul in another, nor yet beautiful in one place and not in another, as if it were beautiful for some and not beautiful for others. Nay, on the contrary, it is in itself and by itself uniquely and eternally beautiful, and from beforehand it contains in a transcendent manner the originating beauty of everything that is beautiful." In his Symposium, Plato took us up what is commonly termed the ladder of beauty, where we ascend from the love of things beautiful to the senses to spiritual things beautiful to the mind. How often do we hear a physicist or a mathematician refer to a theorem or an equation as being beautiful? This is especially true when speaking of the symmetry in numbers. Likewise, how often do we hear someone refer to a kind and generous person as being beautiful, even if they are outwardly unattractive? And is generosity itself not a beautiful thing to witness? The modern notions, however, of beauty being in the eye of the beholder, or that everything is beautiful, is one that leads us away from the originator of beauty and into the void. And of course, if everything is beautiful, then nothing is beautiful. Now here's the way I draw pictures. Now here's the way M.C. Escher draws pictures. Now, is there really any argument as to which one is beautiful and which one is ugly? A cat can walk across a piano and make sounds. It's cute to watch, but is it beautiful? Is it even art? Now here is a real pianist. Only a fool would say a cat walking across a piano or banging his paw on it was making better music than a great pianist like Art Tatum. Likewise, it's extremely doubtful that your 8-year-old can either compose or play better than Rachmaninoff. The ancients would have said that one was revealing something more of God than the other in their art. But what about when we get to the higher degrees of artisanship? Who is the greater composer, Bach or Schubert? Not that art should be a contest, but can we say with the same certainty exactly who is creating the best art when judging between two individuals that are both great composers or great musicians, as we can when judging between the cat and Art Tatum? It gets much harder, doesn't it? However, that we can be objective about musical talent on a lower level means that we can probably do it on any level if we know how. The problem is that we don't know the rules to the game when things get complicated. But the rules simply must exist, or everyone would be confused as to whether or not the cat or Rachmaninoff, for instance, were the better composer. Not one sane person on the planet is confused about that. There's another aspect of art that's even more difficult to judge, and that pertains to things which can be both simple and yet beautiful. For instance, here's a short stanza from a piece written by a young teen when he had only been playing the guitar for about a year. It's very simple, as you might imagine. Now here's another very short stanza from a piece by J.S. Bach, which is also very simple. Doesn't it seem rather obvious that one is the work of a master composer and the other a beginner, even though both pieces are very simple? So what is it that we're able to judge in this situation? The timing, the tuning, the intonation, they were all fine. Just what is it that makes one piece great art and the other mediocre when judging between simple things? One of my favorite musicians when it comes to simple pieces is Anthony Phillips, and the compositions he was coming up with back in the 70s. They had a real simple beauty about them. Not only that, but Peter Cross came up with some of the most memorable and downright cute album art I've ever seen for those early Phillips records. Again, it's simple stuff, but I like it a lot better than much of the more complicated art I've seen. Rachmaninoff's Third Piano Concerto is often regarded as a very challenging piece to play. It's very complicated, but I've met very few people who really care to listen to it. What I'm trying to say is that being complicated doesn't make art good, and being simple doesn't make it bad. Personally, I side with the ancients. I believe that whatever it is that makes art great must be something that originates within God Himself and His Spirit inside of us. The beauty in art is a reflection of God Himself, and to whatever degree that reflection is manifest is the degree to which the art is beautiful or ugly. Likewise, the ability to discern the beautiful from the ugly may well be due to the portion of God which has manifested itself within us. Deep calls into deep, the psalmist says. The closer I get to God, the better I'm able to detect Him and His beauty in the things and people around me. Maybe when I get to heaven, I'll finally know how it is that I'm able to know great art when I see or hear it. Until then, I'm just picking.